You are tuned to Anubhav 2.0 podcast from senior citizens, catalyzed and supported by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, through National Institutes for Social Defense and Media for Community Foundation. The project is conceived and designed by Dr. R. Sridhar and supported by Ashish Tiwari, Pooja Murada, Sai Sudha, and Kaushalya.
கூடுங்கள் கேளுங்கள் நண்பர்களே, இளமையில் நாம் செய்ய நினைத்ததை முதுமையில் செய்ய இயலுமே என்று வாருங்கள் வாருங்கள் நண்பர்களே, கூடுங்கள் கேளுங்கள் நண்பர்களே. கோவைவானில் ஒன்றாய் கூடி சிந்திப்போம், கேட்போம், மகிழ்வோம், சிந்திப்போம், கேட்போம், மகிழ்வோம்.
Vanakkam listeners, welcome to the second episode in the Becoming a Man podcast series by Colonel Achal Sridharan. In this episode, he takes you beyond the gates of the prestigious National Defence Academy. From grueling training routines to lifelong camaraderie, from discipline to unforgettable memories, Colonel takes us on a deep dive into what it truly means to be a cadet at the NDA. Whether you are an aspiring officer, a military enthusiast, or just curious about life inside India's premier military academy, this episode is for you. So sit back, tune in, and get ready for an inspiring conversation with a man who has worn the uniform with pride and served the nation with honor. Thank you.
Vanakkam. In my previous podcast, I said I will tell you about my life in the army. But then there is a phase of training both at National Defence Academy, Kadakwasla, and also Indian Military Academy, which I think I must share with you. When I was selected and made the All India merit list for National Defence Academy, Kadakwasla, Pune, I was given a second class ticket, and my parents and my brother and sisters came to the railway station along with some of my friends and saw me off at New Delhi, and I had to travel to Pune all by myself. Of course, the second class compartment of those days were really fit for Maharaja style travel. Along with me, there were about 4 or 5 cadets who were also joining the same 34th course for which I was selected. One of them, as the train left, I still remember he waved out his hands and told his parents and his near and dear who had come to see him off, and he shouted and said, "I will come back." I simply laughed. Now, this dialogue normally you will see in a Hindi film when the hero who is in the army goes to fight a war and he will tell his lover that I will come back. But here we are. Here we were going to National Defence Academy for training and not to go and fight a war. All said, it was a very pleasant journey, and the travel to Pune those days was excellent. The weather was very nice. We had to pass through a large number of hillocks, and the journey was very, very pleasant, to say the least. We got down at Pune railway station, and there was a reception center where we were asked to report, and they took down our particulars and then boarded us in a 3-ton truck. The 3-ton truck is a typical army truck, which today you don't see because it has been replaced by later versions from Ashok Leyland or some other companies. And inside this 3-ton truck, he took our suitcase, ourselves, put on a tie, shirt, full sleeves, a trouser, as a gentleman, and we were made to travel like a pack of sheep. Then only we understood that in the army, everything is not hunky-dory or everything is not full of pleasure, but we have to make do with whatever we get. When he got down at the NDA in front of the cadets' mess, immediately there was some tables that we had to go around and give our particulars and deposit 180 rupees DD. This 180 rupees was the money which I would get every month, rupees 30. De facto, my father had to spend only 30 rupees for my training and my stay, and perhaps I would have been the cheapest in terms of expenses to my parents for my career. After all sorts of documentation, we are allotted our squadrons. Those days, there were 6 terms in National Defence Academy. Each term is of 6 months duration. Even now, it is the same as it was then. The only difference being, now we recruit women cadets also, and for which we have got the 13th squadron made. Each squadron consists of about 120 cabins with its own miniature lounge and a drill square in front where we used to assemble every evening before going for dinner, and we will be briefed by the sergeant major and the squadron cadet captain. NDA was a fantastic experience. It's one of the finest institutions that one can hope to get in. And it is the only institution which trains the cadets for Army, Navy and the Air Force. The first 2 years, we are all trained on the same subjects. In the third year, the Army guys go for specializing in Army subjects. The Air Force fellows go for gliding and other Air Force subjects. And the naval guys learn about ships, boats, etc. The day we arrived, the same day we were all issued with a bicycle. The term issue is very much applicable in the army and the armed forces. It is not the issue that you have with somebody, but you are issued a banyan, you are issued a shoe, you are issued a bicycle, and you are issued with a nameplate. So everything is an issue, and we were issued with a bicycle. We were told to ride 2 abreast and not break the column. They took us to a fort which is exactly behind the huge drill square facing the Sudan block, and there we are marched in, asked to stand next to each other, and we were given bag, notebooks and books of physics, chemistry, mathematics, English, geography, history and whatnot. I saw the books and I cried. I cried because my very purpose of joining the army was not to study. And here I am thrown at with all these books which I had gone through in my class 9, 10 and 11 in Delhi. When a senior sergeant major saw me crying, he came next to me, pulled me up with my tie and said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "I don't want to study." He said, "You bloody well study and you stop crying. Otherwise, I'll make a sissy out of you and make sure that no tear comes from your eyes ever. So I said, this is my fate, my karma, that I have to study. We collected the books, boarded a cycle, and went to our respective squadrons. I always thought the cycle was meant for riding and going from place A to place B. For example, when you go to the drill square, you use the cycle. When you go for academic classes after breakfast, you use the cycle. When you go for riding, you go to the riding club, there you use the cycle. Or when you go to play games, you go to the playground, use the cycle. Or if you have to go and see a movie, which is normally shown on every Saturday, we used to cycle. But I never learned. I learned one more thing, or the usage of the cycle. As a first termer, we are noticeable because they give you an armband which you have to wear until you pass the drill square test, which is held after 6 weeks. So you get recognized from miles that you are a first termer. Anybody who is senior to you can ask you to get down from the cycle and lift it up and run. To be honest, in the first term, it was the cycle that I carried and not the cycle that I rode. This also helped me to build my muscles on my shoulders. And this also taught me that how to carry the cycle whereby the grease from the chain doesn't spoil my shorts or my shirt. NDA has drill instructors. They are normally a Nayak or a Havaldar from the army, and the way they shake you up on the drill square, you just don't know what has hit you. Marching is not left, right, or piche mode. They teach you the marching the correct way, which they want us to do, with our arms swinging and the legs hitting with the heels on the ground. And we wear those boots, the black boots, which has to be shining, because if it is not shining, then you're asking for trouble in the drill square. You'll be made to run with a rifle on your head around the drill square for not being properly dressed or your shoes not shining. These drill instructors, or the drill ustads as we used to call them, were a lot of terrifying characters. They'll lift you with your belt and come so near to you and shout at the top of their voice for you to hear, and just you freeze when that guy does that to you. You cannot react anything because that is an implicit obedience. That is what it is taught to you in NDA. One thing I learned was that I had no control over my thinking. Everything had to be controlled by the seniors or the drill instructors or the PT masters or the swimming instructor or the academic instructors or the Army, Navy, Air Force divisional officers or the adjutant of the academy who is to come on a horse, especially when we are in the drill square. They taught me that if they say it is day, even though it may be night, I have to say it is day. Moment I said it is day, because my senior said it is day, then he tells me, what an idiot you are. Can't you make out it is night? Then he'll ask you, what is it now? You say night. Then again he'll say, I told you to say day and you're calling it night. No, they're not confusing you. They're basically telling you that there is something called implicit obedience and you don't ask questions. I learned what was front row. Front roll meaning that, you're like a frog, you sit down and then you roll with your hand going forward and on your back. And you can front roll from the staircase, you can front roll on the ground, you can get physical punishment. There is no way that you can cry. To be very honest, in my first 3 or 4 weeks, I just wanted to run away back to Delhi. But what stopped me from doing that was, what will my friends say if I come back? They'll say I was a coward who could not withstand the rigors of the army life. So we all bear with the pains of the first term, where we miss terribly is to sleep. You'll be surprised if I tell you that because the whole night we are awake with doing some punishment, in the daytime we learned how to sleep with our eyes open in the drill square. I mean, this is a remarkable achievement, and only the Army, Navy and the Air Force can teach you at the National Defence Academy. But today, of course, I don't sleep with my eyes open. But today I see many of my colleagues looking at me, staring at me, and I know they are not listening to me. They are not sleeping. They are simply telling me, you are talking crap. Now, this is the civil life that I have learned, just the opposite of what I learned in the army. 6 months passed quickly. I came back home for a 1-month holiday, and I thought I've achieved a lot in life. I had a typical NDA haircut where they shave off your head almost, and on the side they put that machine. But I find that today's haircut in these days is the same that the haircut that we used to have in NDA. And we used to call it as Mestin cut. Nothing below the Mestin. If you keep it on your head covered, no hair will be seen. No hair is to be seen below the beret. So it was that kind of a haircut, and you come on a holiday, you go to Connaught Place, you will get notice from miles. And we also tried to show off because we had the NDA blazer, and NDA blazer means a very big thing. And when you put it on and walk in Connaught Place, you think that all the girls have nothing better than to look at you because you're wearing the NDA blazer. In fact, they normally look at our haircut and giggle and not look at our NDA blazer. But that is part of life. 3 years went just like that. And one thing that NDA gave was fantastic food. Amazing. You could have any number of eggs. It could be boiled egg, or it could be omelette, or it could be sunny side up, or it could be bhujia, any number of toast and butter, jam and milk and coffee. Porridge of variety of various kind. On each day it was different. 1,500 cadets used to be served the food at the same time on the table. Lunch, you had always, for a non-vegetarian, you had mutton or chicken, and at night you had fish or chicken. Something else used to come. Sometimes it used to be the English food or the continental food. Sometimes it used to be the Indian food. We were taught how to eat with proper table manners. We could not touch the food with our hands or fingers. We had to use the proper fork, knife, and the corresponding spoon. For pudding, there was a smaller spoon. For coffee, there was a small cup, and with a smaller spoon for coffee. They taught you how to eat properly by closing your mouth and not making noise while you're chewing your food. If you did that, the senior who will be sitting next to you will just hit you with his hand on your body. But we learned that these are all manners that we need to, that you don't chew the food by opening the lips. polite talk is what is expected. We couldn't talk across to the person sitting across, but only to the ones sitting besides me on either side. After each small portion of food, I had to cross the fork and knife, chew, and then take the next portion of food in my mouth. It is not a continuous eating, putting it in your mouth, open the lips and make noise and eat and then lick your fingers left, right and center and be satisfied. You had to be prim and proper. You had to be a gentleman even while eating. And not only a gentleman, they said you become a gentleman first, an officer later. In the third year, the army had tough camps. We were taken on long camps. We were taught about living outside, small things like patrolling and section, how to take care of section of 10 people, how you have to live with your weapon. The weapon cannot be put on the ground. And we were on variety of camps, and the last camp used to be the longest because at the end of it, you had to walk almost about 25 to 30 kilometers in a given time with 35 kgs on your back and your personal arm with you. And time was also allotted. They also taught us that when we are in a group, we cannot leave somebody behind if he gets hurt. The rest of us had to carry him back to the base. That was the comradeship that we learned. That is what we learned in being buddies. That is what we learned, that you don't live for yourself, but you live for others. The NDA always gave this motto, service before self. Is something amazing motto where you don't think about self, but providing service to others first. It's an excellent motto which I can never forget even today. After 3 years in the academy at National Defence Academy, I moved to Indian Military Academy, Dehradun. It was closer to New Delhi, but it was only for the army. We also had cadets who came from the ranks and they had a training of 1.5 years. We had direct entry cadets who did 2 years training after finishing college in IMA. And people like us who came from NDA, we had only 1 year of training. IMA, my monthly pay was increased to 40 rupees. My father had to spend, instead of 180 rupees per term, he now had to spend 240 rupees per term. But we also had technical entries, people who have finished engineering and join and do 1 year's training. Those guys used to get a second lieutenant salary and they were always rich. The cadets or the gentlemen cadets who joined from the ranks, they got their salary. And we guys from the NDA, we just got 40 bucks. But we also learned how to earn some money. When we used to go on these long exercises and camps, these technical guys were not physically so fit. We had to carry the platoon weapons like a 2-inch mortar or an LMG or a medium machine gun. And these guys cannot carry and walk. And we will say that, okay, we'll carry it when your turn comes. And you buy us chocolates or something else and give it to us when you go back. So it was a barter deal that we did with these technical graduates, and we survived or we learned the art of survival by putting in that much of extra work to our body by carrying that weapons instead of somebody else. IMA was only 1 year. 1 year in IMA, there was a passing out parade. My parents, my sister, my brothers, they all came for the passing out parade because I was picked to be a second lieutenant after the parade in the Chetwood Hall. On one side, I was picked by my mother, and the other side, one star, was pipped by my sister. Most of the cadets had their parents coming. Some had even their wives coming and doing this pipping ceremony, as we used to call. Times have changed now. Today, when you enter the Indian Military Academy, you get a lieutenant's pay because the second lieutenant rank itself has been abolished. And therefore, you get a lieutenant's pay, but they don't give it to you in hand. But when you pass out after 1 year in IMA, you get quite a bit of money for you to buy a motorcycle and be happy. When I passed out of IMA in 1969, June 15th, my salary was 472 rupees per month. I could afford to buy only a cycle. But things were very cheap. You'll be surprised that I could afford to buy a scotch in my officer's mess once a week. I paid for my meals out of this 472 rupees. Nowadays you get entitled rations for officers also. But then we are a very happy lot. We did not have much of money, but the cost of living was very low. And we led a wonderful life of an officer and of course a gentleman. That's how I began my days as a second lieutenant of a regiment of artillery. My story from here onwards will be in my next podcast when I'll tell you what happened after passing out of IMA and my training started at the School of Artillery at Devlali, Nasik. Bye for now.
Thank you and stay tuned.